Hello guys, IPTech here, and I'm back with another video. And this time will be something that I haven't done yet. It's going to be a US build, as I checked my analytics recently and I saw that about the same amount of people watch from the UK as from the US. So I decided to give a PC build to those guys that are watching from the US or from America. And this is going to be a $700 build, as $700 is about £500 or something like that, which is the perfect price, or what I consider the best price, or the best budget price for a build, and something that most people would most likely spend on a good gaming PC. And prices are a bit different in the US. If we convert this build into pounds, it does come up a bit cheaper. So people in America do get the parts a bit cheaper if you convert it, that is. So keep that in mind, I guess, if you're trying to do this build in the UK, but it's an American build, so okay, let's get on with it then. First, as always, is the CPU, and for this build I chose an Intel CPU. It's the Intel Core i5-4460. It's not a K version, so you can't overclock it, but it's still a very good CPU. And most games, it's a quad-core CPU, which I think it's what most people should be buying, at least 4 cores, that is. As most games, like most newer titles, are starting to implement like a limit on having you have to have at least 4 cores for the game to actually run. So I guess so having 4 cores is pretty important. And games are generally single-threaded workloads, meaning that they care about the per-core performance of a CPU. So if a CPU single-core performance is very good, then if it's got 4 cores, then it's gonna perform a lot better than something that's got loads of cores, but each core performs like a lot worse than the other one. So you have to keep that in mind. That's why I went with this 4460. It's about 180 quid, which is more expensive than the AMD CPUs I usually recommend, like the FX 6300 or the 8320 or 8350. But at about $180, which does convert back down to about, I don't know, 120 quid, which is very cheap for an i5 CPU. It is clocked to 3.2 GHz, and it's on the LJ1150 socket. But it does support the boost. I think they call it the turbo boost 2.0 technology, and which enables it to go up to 3.4 GHz, which should be enough. I guess should be enough for gaming. This should perform actually better than an FX 8350 in gaming. The only place it actually falls behind compared to the AMD CPU is in OpenGL and rendering as well, because rendering and editing videos, that requires multiple cores more than gaming. So if this machine is mostly focused on just gaming, so no editing or anything like that, so this CPU is it's going to perform a lot better than like the AMD CPU. Not a lot better, but well, significantly better. And that's why I would recommend it if you're in the US, to get this CPU instead of a AMD CPU. Next, we need the motherboard, and since it's a non-overclockable CPU, then we don't need a Z97 board. So because we can't overclock it. But if you really do want a Z97, which I wouldn't recommend, since you're going with a non-overclocked CPU, but I guess if you're planning on getting an overclockable CPU in the future, then get a Z97 now and save some money from then. But for this build, I suggest getting an H97, and the one I chose is the ASRock's H97M Anniversary LG1150 motherboard. So it is the H97 chipset, which is non-overclockable, so you can't overclock on this motherboard. It is micro ATX motherboard, so it doesn't support Crossfire or SLI. So it's got only a single 18x slot. It does have four DIMM slots for DDR3 up to 1600 MHz RAM, which is plenty. 1600 MHz is more than enough for gaming, as it doesn't really affect any sort of gaming performance, and it does support fourth generation CPUs like Intel CPU, which is the Haswell one. So it's the fourth generation. Sorry. The PCIe slot, or the X16 slot, is a PCI 3.0 slot, which should have some difference if you pair it up with a Gen 3 card, PCI Express Gen card, 3.0 Gen graphics card. So keep that in mind, as I don't know if you know, but the AMD FX 8320, 6300, all those motherboards don't support PCI Gen 3. They're only stuck with PCI Gen 2. So you have to keep that in mind. And it's overall a good motherboard. It does have onboard audio, which these more cheaper motherboards don't really have any sort of good onboard audio, so I wouldn't use that. I guess if you really want some good audio, then maybe buying a sound card or a DAC or digital to analog converter, then I would suggest doing that. But it's only $65, which is extremely cheap, and it's gonna allow us to spend more money on other things like the graphics card, which is what's most important in a gaming build. Next, we need some RAM, and for this, I chose the Crucial Ballistic Sport 8 gigs. Sorry about that. Crucial Ballistic Sport 8 gigs of RAM. It's 2x4 gig sticks, a DDR3 1600 speed RAM. So Crucial makes pretty good RAM, and this is the Ballistic Sports line is it's a very reliable and RAM that I would recommend, and it's pretty cheap in the US. It's only about $50, which is extremely cheap when you convert it back to pounds. So I would suggest getting this RAM at 1600 speed, as I said before, more than enough, as it doesn't really perform. It doesn't really make any difference in terms of gaming, and 8 gigs is still the norm, the best amount of RAM you can, not the best, but the sweet spot, I guess, because you don't want to be spending over $100 on RAM for 16 gigs of RAM, which you're not gonna use in gaming. You only need 16 gigs or above if you're doing editing, which this build is not focused on, as we will only be focusing on gaming. So I'll just get in 8 gigs now, and should be enough for the next few years. Next is the storage, and again I managed to fit in a 250 gig SSD, but no hard drive, so this build is only gonna be relying on a single 250 gig SSD, and it's the Crucial's BX100. So this is not as high performance as the MX line, but it's much cheaper, so it's still gonna give you plenty of performance. So the performance difference is not that big. It's not that significant, and you're still gonna get an SSD, which is gonna increase the boot times of your system, and like loading apps and that, and also loading games. So it's 250 gigs, so you could fit in a few games, and it's gonna increase the loading times of games like Battlefield 4, which has got pretty long loading times on normal mechanical hard drives, and it's gonna boost that loading times by quite a lot. And if 250 gigs is not enough for you, then you can try salvaging a hard drive from like an old computer that you have, or getting a new one. It's only about $50 for the WD Caviar Blue, which is gonna be plenty of storage. On 1 terabyte should be plenty of storage for any games and save data, and downloading movies and that. So if you really wanna do all that, then you can get a 1 terabyte hard drive, but I would still suggest getting both together, I guess, and not replacing an SSD with a hard drive, which I would not recommend that. But it's up to you if you want to do that. Next is the graphics card, which is what's really most important in a gaming build is what's gonna deliver the gaming performance, gonna deliver the gaming experience. And I went with a new card that's recently released. It's from AMD. It's the Sapphire's Nitro Radeon R9 380. It's a 4 gig card and a 256-bit bus with the RAM is the VRAM is GDDR5 as usual, and it is PCI Express 3.0, so it's gonna be compatible with our board, even though it's still compatible with 2.0, but it doesn't matter. It does have 4 gigs of RAM, which is pretty good, and it's about 220 bucks at the moment with a rebate, I think, on this card. No, there's no rebate on this card. Sorry. And the R9 280 was one of my favorite cards for 1080p gaming, as I believe it was pretty cheap here, especially here in the UK. You could get it for 130 bucks, and it would deliver very good solid performance with 3 gigs of RAM. And this time, I know people are like saying it's to rebrand the R9 380 is like a rebranded 280 or 285, but it's more of a refresh, as they did improve quite a lot, and the performance is actually very good for the price. For 220 bucks, you can get a card that's gonna pretty much get over 60 FPS at 1080p, and any game, even new AAA titles like Witcher 3, I believe you can still get about up to 60 FPS at 1080p in ultra settings with this card. And it does have 4 gigs of VRAM, which is going to be very useful in the next few years, as games are using more and more RAM, like GTA 5, which has got a ridiculous amount of RAM. It's got a DVI, 2 DVI ports, the usual display port and HDMI, but the HDMI is not a 2.0 port, meaning that if you're planning on hooking this up to, like, say, a 4K monitor, you won't be able to use the 60 FPS. It's going to be capped at 30 FPS, so you have to be mindful of that. But at this price point, this card is not aimed for 4K gaming. It's more aimed at like 1080p or even a bit of 1440p, I guess, if you turn down the settings. So that shouldn't be a problem. And it's overall a very good card. The Sapphire is like one of the best brands for AMD cards, as they only exclusively deal with AMD. So I believe it's one of the best brands, if not the best brands, to buy if you're getting an AMD card. And the new Nitro series it's got quite a few good specs, and you can see that they've put quite a lot of time into building this and making it the best one for gaming, and not making you pay extra money. It's pretty much similar. It's pretty much the same price as a stock cooler one, or as the reference card, I mean. So I would suggest getting that. I would suggest getting this card for this build, as it's at the moment I believe it's a sweet spot card. Next is the case. So I went with one of my favorite case, which I did a review a few weeks ago, and which I'm using for my own system, is the NZXT S340. So in my opinion, this is one of the best power supplies you can buy at the moment. It's 63 $63 in the US at the moment, which is it's a very good price, especially if you convert it back to pounds. It's like extremely cheap. It's like 40 quid into pounds. I don't know the conversion rate at the moment. I'm just totally guessing. So I guess you can look that up for yourself. But it is one of the best cases, and I am using it at the moment, so I can't recommend it enough. It's very spacious. You do get loads of features. Very good cable management. You do have a shroud that covers the PSU, the power supply, and it hides all the cables very nicely, so it looks very neat and clean. And you have that nice big window on the side that's going to show off all your components. And it's overall a very good case with decent airflow, good build quality, and just an overall very good case. And I would recommend for anyone that's looking for a case or doing a new build at around this price point to get this case. I would not go any cheaper, as you want your case to last a few upgrades, so you need to make sure your case lasts longer than the components inside it, as you don't want to be spending more money every time you upgrade on a new case. So, and this is the best case, so I can't recommend this enough. Next is, and last but not least, is it's what's gonna power the system. It's the power supply, and we are using an AMD card, which is more power hungry than, let's say, a GTX card like the Nvidia cards. With the Maxwell technology, they're much more power efficient. But this is not a higher end card. It's more of a lower end or mid-range graphics card. So it's actually on the same power requirements, about 970, which is it's a very good, another good card, which is $100 more. So it's going to draw about the same power. The performance is the performance difference is actually not as big as you would think between the R9 380 and the GTX 970, considering the price gap. So keep that in mind. And that's why I chose a 600 watt power supply, but a 500 watt power supply probably would have been enough. But I wanted to play it safe and go with the EVGA 600 watt bronze 8+ bronze certified power supply, as if you want to upgrade in the next few years to a much hungrier card, a much more power, a card that requires much more power, then this should allow you to upgrade it and not have to worry about if it's gonna be enough. And EVGA is starting to make very good power supplies for the money. This is only about what is it? It's about 60 quid, and does have a $10 mail-in rebate, so you can get this for 50 quid, which I would suggest using if you're into that. Then on this build in total, you could save about 20 quid worth of rebates. So I suggest making use of that, because it's $20 and you can save that, and then maybe if you think there's another part in this build that you like, then you can get that part that's gonna perform better. And this is overall very good power supply, and I would recommend getting it if you're doing this build. But you can still go with a 500 watts if you want to save a little bit of money. So overall, if you look at the PC parts picker link, it says the estimated wattage is going to be about 350 watts, which is probably going to be a bit higher than that, more closer to 400. But that's still plenty within our power supply's range, so it doesn't matter. And if you look at the total price without a mail-in rebate, it's a bit over. It's 20 quid over budget, $700 budget. But again, if you use the mail-in rebates, you can get 20 quid off. And also, you do keep in mind there are shipping costs. There is a shipping cost. There's a 4 quid shipping cost for the graphics card at the moment, so you do have to keep that in mind as well. So if you get in this build, you do need to have $725 ready to pay, as you need to pay the full price before you can get the mail-in rebate. So you need to keep that in mind. But I would suggest using a mail-in rebate, as it does bring out the price to $700. Sorry. And thank you for listening, guys. This is it for the build. If you like the video, make sure you click the thumbs up button below, and make sure to subscribe to my channel for more videos like this, and maybe give us some suggestions to future videos on what kind of builds you want, or if I haven't done a build in your country, then if I have enough viewers from that country, then I might do a build for it. So again, thank you for listening, and see ya.